Coming into the 2024 season, there were a ton of storylines people were ready to roll with. Was Cam Ward going to take Miami to the next level? Would Dylan Gabriel be the turning point for Oregon? How would Alabama and Michigan fare with their longtime head coaches going their separate ways? But what very few people were thinking about was how this Heisman race would look in the middle of the season. And if they were thinking about it, I'm sure nobody pictured that it would be as weird and as rare as it ended up being. But you can get in on the action too with Underdog, the easiest place to play fantasy sports. And if you sign up with my promo code today, you're not just getting the best fantasy sport experience, but helping your favorite football YouTube channel out. Using that code will also get you a free pick, plus you can get a deposit offer and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. And what better way to use that cash than on Pick'em, where you pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. Yes, it's just that easy, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money in a single night. And if you sign up today, they're gonna throw in a free CJ Stroud pick. I mean, they seriously don't want you to lose, and that's just a great way to get your streak started. So if you want my picks, last time they played, the Bills shut down Tua Tagovailoa, and I think that's gonna happen again. And on top of that, I think Sam Darnold is gonna have a heck of a bounce back week, so I got him higher when they're taking on the Colts. And for my kicker pick, you already know we got to go with Joey Sly for the Patriots, getting more than 2 field goals. It's gonna be a sloppy, grindy matchup there. And I just love how easy it is to use Underdog's app. So don't punt on a good time. Click the link in the description and come play today on Underdog. So where do we begin? Let's start with a guy who I think we all knew would kind of be in this conversation, but maybe didn't know how dominant he would be, and that's Travis Hunter. Last year, he left the college world with a lot of question marks. Question marks spurring from one main question being, what happens if he didn't get hurt? He was on a historic pace of dominance at the beginning of 2023, with his game against TCU going down as one of the greatest dual performances of all time, as he caught 119 yards of passes, as well as getting a grip of tackles and a game-changing interception. But of course, against Colorado State, Travis would go down, and with him, the entire team's momentum, as they'd get stopped by Oregon in his absence, lose to USC, and quite frankly not look the same offensively or defensively. Then he'd come back in his first game against Stanford and looked like he wasn't really quite ready to be back, as a wide receiver from Stanford quite frankly had his way with him that game, despite him putting up 140 yards of receiving and 2 touchdowns on his own. On top of that, the rest of the Colorado team was really just struggling, as they would melt down the rest of their season, dropping their last 6 games and losing all hype that they had. And you could say that the same thing kind of happened for Hunter. That was until this season. Out the gate, playing against one of the best FCS teams in the country, one known for taking out FBS teams, and Hunter popped off. I'm talking about 132 yards and 3 touchdowns on offense, while remaining to be a lockdown corner on defense. Then against the Huskers, while offensively they were getting shut down, Hunter would still find 110 yards of receiving, as well as another 100 yards and 130 yards the following week as they rolled past Colorado State and took Baylor to the wire and beat them there. Heck, he even had another 89 yards on 9 completions against UCF, as he continued to just be a threat at all times, no matter how many reps he played, as it seemed like this dude has unlimited gas in the tank. Not to mention that game against UCF, he also had a clutch 3rd quarter pick to keep any comeback desires by the Black Knights at bay. So far, Travis has been this team's leading receiver 50% of the time, all while playing pretty much all defensive snaps. And let's talk about the problem of being a good cornerback that I don't hear enough people talk about, and that's the fact that as a good corner, you're not going to have a lot of stats to work with. In fact, one of the best signs that you're a good corner is a lack of statistics, because offenses won't even want to throw it your way. If you're clamping up somebody in man coverage, what do you think they're going to do? Throw it at you? If they know you have great closing speed, just look at what happened when UCF tried him in zone defense. Surely quarterbacks are going to be hesitant to throw his direction at all, but that doesn't mean he wasn't getting recognition on that side. Let me take you to the most recent game as the time of this video being recorded, where he took on the Cincinnati Bearcats. Travis would be dominant on both sides of the ball, as Hunter would have 9 catches for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns, which earned him Offensive Player of the Week. This complements his Week 3 Defensive Player of the Week awards as they shut down Colorado State, with Hunter helping out with 5 tackles, multiple pass breakups, and a pick to become the only person in Big 12 history to win both Offensive and Defensive Player of the Week in a single year. Truly, Travis may be one of the only players in recent history history who could be drafted top 5 at 2 separate positions. So who on God's green earth could be contesting this unprecedented run? Surely it has to be some star quarterback, right? You'd be so wrong. Oh man, let me introduce you to Ahston Jeanty out of Boise State, and let's just say this: the man is a certified, stamped, and government approved problem. Coming into this year, pretty much nobody outside of Idaho knew who Jeanty was. The school was in the middle of a collapse in 2023 as they dropped down to 4-5, while he had plenty of flashes of greatness like putting up over 200 yards of rushing against San Diego State and Colorado State. It just wasn't enough to overcome his team's overall underwhelming record, not being competitive in their big game against Washington, and the coaching turmoil ultimately left him flying under the radar. Well, that wasn't going to last long in 2024, as Helani, the back that he was splitting time with the previous year, left for the NFL, leaving him the lone starter. And what would he do with the starting title? Oh, if you don't know, take a seat. Georgia Southern was victim number 1. The Boise State quarterback would turn to his right and give the ball to this monster of a human 20 times, a relatively normal amount, and in return, Jeanty would give them 267 yards on the ground and 36 points, aka 6 touchdowns, as well as the opposing team receiving nightmares for months. He would be tried his second game as they would have to take on Oregon, and my god, 25 carries, 192 yards and 3 touchdowns, breaking away for a 70-yard run on top of that. Meanwhile, when they handed it off to anybody else like Gaines, he only got 22 yards on 6 carries, and Maddox, their quarterback, got 7 yards on 2 scrambles. Jeanty's performance alone almost won them the game if they didn't give up a punt return touchdown and a kick return touchdown this game as well. And it's not like this Oregon team had a bad defense. Only one single other team the rest of the year put up as many yards from their entire team on the ground as Jeanty did just by himself, and that was Purdue. The biggest difference is that 6 different guys carried the ball and took 40 rushing attempts to inch him out by just 14 yards. And after that, they would roll through Portland State, where he would be relaxing by the sideline in the 3rd quarter. And against my Washington State Cougars, I reluctantly have to say, put on a goddamn clinic. 26 attempts, 259 yards and 4 touchdowns. He could not be tackled in the next 2 games look just like this. His combination of low center of gravity, great contact balance, unreal vision, and surprising breakaway speed made him a force to be reckoned with through 6 games, until against UNLV, an early tackle would see him hold his arm. As for the rest of the game, we would get to see his floor, and still averaged almost 4 yards a carry and got them 128 yards on the ground. It would take a shoulder injury in the 1st quarter to make Jeanty look human, as well as it being clear that UNLV was doing everything in their power to make sure they wouldn't get beaten by Jeanty alone. That's why up to this point, Ahston Jeanty was on track to break Barry Sanders' 30-year-old record, as he was dragging this Boise State team not just to wins, but to dominating performances with his legs. So what that means is we had a historic level performance on a running back facing off an historic level dual threat performance for the first time ever for the Heisman, which is only amplified by the recent history of the Heisman classes being dominated by quarterbacks, with 8 of the last 10 winners being QBs, and unfortunately, this battle has a chance to be upset by a quarterback itself. The terror that is Dillon Gabriel, the generic best quarterback in the class, who is currently playing for the best team, which is Oregon, as he's making a case these past couple of weeks, especially by rolling past Ohio State. But in this moment in time we live in, we're in a world where the 2 best Heisman candidates are a non-power 5 running back and a wide receiver / defensive back combo, and that is pretty damn sick. So let me know who you think's gonna win in the comments, and peace.
A touchdown, Ashton Jeanty, a 64-yard score.